of events. And in fact, when we look at events that occur elsewhere, we similarly really evaluate those events based on how it impacts us, our world, our view of the world, our emotional state. But I had this incredible privilege of seeing how an event impacted other people in the world 25, 30, 35 times removed. And to say it was profound really is not giving it its due credit, because what it showed me very clearly and very concretely, which again, I told you, I'm a concrete thinking person. I need to actually hold an apple. I am the Thomas that has to put their finger in the hole. But what it showed me very concretely is that, again, this idea that things are good or bad the idea is entirely in our own mind. It's our own judgment. Because the fact is, there really is beauty that comes out of every event. Albeit, usually we can only appreciate it retrospectively. And most of the time, we'll never appreciate it, because we don't have the ability to see those 25, 30, 35 times removed impacts. And part of our evaluation of something when it comes to being good or bad really has to do with a desire to judge it, and a desire to say, well, was that worth it? Because we want to decide whether something that has hurt us or made us sad, or someone we love has gone on. We want to be able to say, well, I don't think that was worth it. Or, okay, now I get it. Oh, okay, I'm okay with it then. But having the ability to see events in my own life and see their impact totally changed the way I experience every event. So that was a pretty remarkable thing. And again, my thought balloon was thinking, okay, I know that I have been underwater too long to still be alive, but I feel more alive than I've ever felt. I knew that I wasn't hallucinating. I kept doing self-assessment exams. I kept thinking, okay, let me just take a moment and try to look at myself from afar, and am I screaming? Am I upset? I'm just not recognizing it. So I was having this dialogue with myself, and I could still feel the water. I could still feel the current working on my body. I could feel my body being sucked out of the boat. And at one point, I could feel my body coming out of the boat. I could feel my knees bending backwards on themselves. And yeah, that was creepy. I saw that expression, yeah. I mean, I'm an orthopedic surgeon. I could tell, I thought, that doesn't feel good. That I could feel the ligaments tearing and the bones breaking, and I still felt absolutely wonderful. I had no pain. And as my body came over the front deck of the boat, I could feel my spirit peeling away from my body, sort of like peeling apart two pieces of tape. And eventually my body broke free from the boat, and my spirit rose up and out of the river. And this is an example of a time when it's so wonderful to talk to people who get it, because the magnificence of and the intensity of this joy of just having the water fall away from me and rising up was just, as you know, indescribable. I mean, it was incredible. And so I rose up and out of the river, and I was immediately greeted by a group of somethings, people, spirits, beings. I'm never quite sure what name to give them, because those words mean different things to different people, but they were people I had known forever, and I knew that they had known me for as long as I had existed. And they were so absolutely overjoyed to see me and welcome me and greet me. And I knew that they were there to guide me. I knew they were there to protect me. And I just couldn't believe it. I was absolutely overcome with a sense of being home, which again is it's so much fun to say that in a group of people who get it. I mean, I was finally home, and I was going to sleep in my own bed, and it was great. And I was surprised by that, because again, in my experience, I was still me. I was still my personality, my cynical self, really. And I was thinking, this is nuts. But I was really surprised by that sense of being home, and I was really surprised by my ability to look back at the river and see what was going on. And of course, there was this shift in time, dimension. I don't know what the right words are to describe that, but of course, time and dimension really lost all meaning. And so I was able to be celebrating with these people and simultaneously watch the guys pull my body to the shore and start CPR. And I recognized my body as mine. I recognized it as my life, that it represented my husband, my 4 young children. And I was really surprised by the fact that I wasn't going back. And I was not a person who was trying to escape something. I had a great life. I still have a great life. I had a great job. I had a husband that not only loved me, but I loved dearly. And I had 4 young children that I loved more than I could ever imagine loving something on earth. I had a great life, and I had every reason to come back. But I had no intention of coming back. Now keep in mind, I mean, people have oftentimes asked me, well, didn't you feel guilty? And you know, I like to say, keep in mind that I had already been reassured by Christ that they would be fine. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. But I was really surprised by that. And so I said, okay, well, that's all good, but they're taking me. And we started down this path toward this great dome structure of sorts, and I'll try to be a little more concrete because a lot of people have asked, well, what was it actually like? And for me, I will say that it was so incredibly beautiful. It was this path was an actual, seemed like a physical path, like a road, but everything else was limitless. It wasn't like it was a hallway. It was an incredible expanse. And I absolutely believe that God speaks to each of us in the way that we will understand, and sends his most gentle messengers to come and collect us. And what speaks to me, what truly, truly moves my soul, is color and flowers and aromas, the aromas of flowers. And that's not true for everyone. I mean, I think that's one of the reasons why when people talk about NDEs, they say, oh, well, you know, they're not all the same. But I would say, for example, when it comes to beauty, they are all the same. So many people talk about intense beauty, albeit different beauty. I like the mountains, I don't like the desert. Other people like the desert. I mean, it's a different beauty. So what speaks to me is color, for example. And this pathway, these people, this hall, was absolutely exploding with the essence of color. I could see and experience and feel and taste every color of the rainbow and more, all at the same time. And it didn't make brown. You know, it was an understanding of every color. And the intensity was, of course, beyond anything, you know, we see here. I mean, the colors here, the feelings here are so pale in comparison. And flowers everywhere, and intense flowers. And again, the flowers, the aromas, as so many of you can understand, it was though I understood the aroma. I could I was part of the aroma. I was part of all of it, and it was all part of me. And everything was infused with an absolute, pure, unconditional love of God. And it was all-encompassing. And so we were going down this pathway, and I knew that this, and I don't really have the words to describe it, of course, but this great dome structure of sorts was really the point of no return. And I could hardly wait, because I wasn't going back. So I'm, running, like, come on, guys, let's go. And one of the guys who was doing CPR was a young man at the time. He was 18, and he kept calling to me to come back, which I might add is exactly opposite of what you're taught to do during emergency resuscitations. Really, in training, you're taught to just divorce yourself from the individual. You just go through the protocols, you keep doing them until they either work or don't. But he was never able to do that. And he kept calling to me to come back and take a breath. And calling and calling and calling. And I would look back, and he was kind of a fluffy guy. He's sort of a very soft, vulnerable kind of a kid. And I would look back, and eventually I would just think, okay. And I would say, okay, hang on, I'll be right back. And I would go back down to the river, and I would quickly lie down, take a breath, and then immediately I'd be back with these people. And then he would start calling, and I would look back and I'd think, oh my gosh, really? Okay. And I would go back and take a breath. And this cycle went on a number of times. And it was interesting to talk to him later, because I was really irritated. And it was interesting to talk to him because he was really irritated, because I would take a breath and then stop. And then eventually I would take a breath. And I joked afterwards, I said, well, you only asked for one breath. I told you several times now, I am a concrete thinking person. If you ask me for a breath, I interpret that as one. So eventually we did get a little bit further down, and we eventually arrived at this threshold, and I could see other angels, people, I'm not sure what to call them, inside, and everyone was very busy, and everyone was so overjoyed to welcome my arrival. And it was amazing because, again, it wasn't me. I knew that that same sense of joy occurred when every person showed up. It was this remarkable recognition, because there's so many of us, and a lot of people die every day. But it was clear that every single soul actually makes a difference. And I was on this threshold for what seemed like, of course, many, many hours. And I, like so many of you, felt that I had complete understanding. I understood how it all worked. I listened to a gal's talk yesterday who said something that I thought, oh my gosh, that's it. She had the same experience. Because she said it all made sense. Everything was in order. And I would say that that was part of my experience. All I had to do was think about a question, and it all made sense. I understood how it worked. And it was remarkable for me in many aspects, one of which was understanding, although of course I can't verbalize it, but truly understanding how it can be true that God actually knows each and every one of us, loves each and every one of us as though we're the only ones, and has a plan for each and every one of our lives that's one of hope. And that was really, not that the rest of it wasn't profound, but this was a very profound understanding for me.